Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today. Um, we run these every 6 weeks or so, talking about how we can go beyond just the service level of AI use, and excited to present today together, not alone, together with Gary Tate. Gary, you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's really nice to be with you tonight. It's actually 10 p.m. for me. It's way past my bedtime, but I'm very happy to be here, talk to you guys and ladies.
Excellent. Okay. So for today, we have quite an action-packed program. If we haven't met yet, I know there's some members here as well. If we haven't met yet, I'm Dan. I'm the founder of Lead with AI. We've been coaching executives and their companies for about 2 years now on AI and AI transformation, which has been really great. We see a lot of potential in the technology. And then Gary, maybe you can give even more of a background to what you just
Yeah, I
gave
knew the
us.
slide was coming, so I was waiting for that. So yeah, I've been a technology leader for 35 years. Started in the military, moved to Silicon Valley after I ran my own consultancy for a while. At my heart, I'm an engineer, but I'm an engineer that's also a CRO, and I own my own business as well. I'm a fractional leader. But for the last 3 years, I've been really building AI first businesses, and I'm a co-founder of an AI first business. And I've been building first workflows around AI, and now I'm heavily into agentic workflows and agents themselves, and building vertical agents. So I have a team that codes, but I do my own thing as well.
Amazing. And you're going to share quite a bit more about agents today, especially what are they and what do we do with
Yeah.
it, which I think is a big question for many of us here. Um, Gary is also leading an upcoming initial first run of a boot camp focused on building agentic workflows. It's probably because it has Gary's name on it, sold out within 2.5, 3 weeks or so, which is very exciting. You may also know that we run an executive boot camp for people who are not quite yet ready to start building agentic workflows, but really want to understand the fundamentals of AI and how to implement it in their day-to-day work. We have the next cohort kicking off on November 14, and that one is also sold out. But we have a lot more going on. We run an executive membership, about 400 senior leaders from all around the world who are coming together every day in an online community to talk about the tools, the tips, the best practices, the case studies, and much more. Also, part of that membership is now a research library of well over 100 AI tutorials, playbooks, and masterclasses. And masterclasses we do every other Thursday, and they range in topic, but they're all about keeping you ahead of the game because AI is developing so quickly. Our next masterclass, if you're in the membership or thinking about signing up, is actually going to be a session on Claude Code, which is very, very interesting because I keep hearing how we all should be using Claude Code, but I still haven't pulled the trigger. But we'll have the expert herself, Helen Lee Kopp, the founder of Women Defining AI, and she will help us non-technical leaders to use Claude Code. We have a great session coming up on kind of rethinking our role in the future, where AI is doing a lot of the work that maybe currently we're doing today with Rob Baker, the HBR published author of Personalization at Work. And then right after that, we have a fireside chat with Maris Krieger, who is the head of L&D at Hearst, to talk about how they approach their AI rollout and some of the things that they've learned when you're trying to tell people whose job it is to make content that you're going to implement a system that creates content, as well as a bunch of other sessions that you can find on the website. And it's really great, as some of you are here, to have all of these great customers now as a part of Lead with AI, and really great that we can do such fantastic work together to really try and capitalize on AI as a way to improve the world of work. Then the most asked question, I will answer it ahead of time, is will you get the slides? And the good news is you don't only get the slides, you also get the recording of the webinar. So you can even replay it and maybe skip a few portions here or there. So normally we talk about the kind of the fundamentals of what it is that you need to know now to be a top 1% AI leader, right? Especially if you're thinking about moving your team, your company along. But thought for today, because we've run a few of these sessions now, and rather than repeating that because it's already on the record and the fundamentals don't change that much, thought we would look into some of the key things that have happened over the month of October. And let's go into that now. And it's kind of like 10 key kind of like stories, platform updates, case studies that I've pulled out. And I think they really tell the overall story that we're really moving to a very different way of working with AI. It also shows that we're not quite there yet. And the first story that I pulled out from our newsletter from 2 weeks ago is this new article from McKinsey that talks about how the agentic organization is really going to be the next type of organization. They talk about, as you can see on this chart here, how we've gone from the craft and agriculture era to the industrial era to then digital, and that now with AI, we're actually going into a completely new world. And in speaking with so many people and doing or doing so much work with companies, I'm just still not really hearing and seeing that sense of things are fundamentally going to change and there's going to be a massive transformation. I think there's a lot of smaller changes happening. But I think this really lays it out quite well. And we'll hear obviously a lot more about agentic AI from Gary in just a bit. But McKinsey really here is saying that this is going to be the next major revolution in how we run our businesses, right? We have to kind of envision that whatever company we run today, in the company or in the future, that will be a company run by humans and AI agents collaborating very closely. And they look at how everything will change across five pillars. The business model, which should be totally changing, but consumers, your customers are changing. Your operating model, basically, how do you then run a company in the agentic AI era? The governance, how do you manage all of that? The workforce, people, and culture, obviously a huge part, especially our focus on that. And then, of course, the technology and data. So a lot of change has to happen, quite a few parameters that we're just not seeing yet. So another major story that came out this month was the Yale research paper done together with Brookings that found that actually up until now, there really hasn't been a massive transformation. There have been changes, obviously. It's probably not a good time to be a translator, a human translator. It's probably not a good time to be maybe a first line help desk worker. But overall, we haven't really seen a major shift compared to other technology changes before. And they even say in that paper that most teams are still remaining at the prompting stage rather than rethinking their entire system, right? So we're making incremental small upgrades. We're not really changing the fabric of the companies, right? Or maybe starting entire new companies based on this new reality. And again, everything I'm learning from Gary right now makes me feel that, again, we're really still in the very early stages of AI, almost like a trial mode, I called it here. And that it makes sense that the disruption isn't really showing up in this data because the disruption hasn't really taken place yet. So I think most of the change is still going to come. Also, a really big viral article from on HBR, based on research by BetterUp, shows that we're not only not implementing AI, I would say fast enough, but we're also implementing it in the wrong way. We're now seeing, BetterUp calls this work slop. We're now seeing basically people using AI tools as a shortcut to productivity, maybe a bit of productivity theater, but as a shortcut to produce work product. And what we end up seeing, and I called it, kind of like the hidden rework text that you then get. What we're now seeing is that people are getting AI content that looks good, but as the slide says from BetterUp, lacks substance. And if you get work from someone in your organization that looks good on the surface, but there's no real value in it, that obviously costs a lot of time and money to then correct that, right? Because you got to first figure out that there is an issue there. BetterUp estimates it could cost companies up to $9 million a year. And also, there's an implication for the people sending this type of poor AI generated content, where the people who receive it see the sender as less trustworthy, less creative, even less intelligent, and they're less willing to collaborate with them again. So we're really seeing that in many organizations, AI is being adopted not in the right way. And we really haven't, again, just taught the basics gotten people familiar with how AI works, all the benefits, of course, but also all the downsides of AI. Now, if we look at the broader market, this is another study that came out just last week from Harvard, where they looked at, okay, what is the labor market actually going to look like, right? And this is for US, as many research papers are. Come on, Europe, we got to do better. But this is for US. And they basically asked thousands of people, like well over 10,000 people, what is the kind of work that AI could be doing? And what is the kind of work that AI should be doing? And they basically they found these like four quadrants where there are certain jobs where there's low capability from AI and high repugnance. So that's really, really where the friction is on both the technological, like what's possible, and on what people would accept for AI to do. And that's things like, for example, nannies. And I think that's a really good one, right? Then in the top right quadrant, we have only the moral friction. So basically, AI can do it, but people say absolutely not. And this is, for example, psychologists, sociologists come in here, teachers. Then in the bottom right quadrant, we have no friction at all, where there is high capability of AI and there's low repugnance. So that's basically where we really should be implementing AI, especially augmenting. That's really what people say, where they feel the most okay with AI taking some part of the roles. And this is in, for example, in marketing, in analysis, in economist. And then there is technical friction where, we say, okay, fine, let AI do it. Maybe gambling dealers is one of the examples here, but the technology is not quite there. So it's quite interesting to see that, something that we also have to think about is that just because AI can do something doesn't mean that it should do something, right? So as we're mapping out the future of our organizations, we got to see where the capability of AI and the consent of the people diverge, right? Because we don't want some massively negative story in the media about how we're taking away really relevant roles from humans and giving it to AI. It's definitely going to backfire on us. So I know, like, those are a couple of points that it's a lot to take in and there's a lot to consider when you're running an organization. But anyway, that's the job you signed up for. So we're just here to supply the intel. Then obviously, how do you do it, right? So some of you members here may have attended a session. We talked about how Zapier is one of these great examples of not just saying that people should be using AI, but really mapping out what does it look like to be AI fluent. And I would say AI fluency is now really something that's coming up more and more, where companies realize that it's not just about some upskilling and like learning a couple of tools, but really how fluent are you in adopting AI as every part of your job. And in the case of Zapier, they ranged it from unacceptable, which is really not about the knowledge, but really about the mindset of the people, to capable, adaptive, and transformative. And transformative is the level where people are rethinking entire departments, rethinking entire workflows. So another thing to consider, to think about right now, is do you have a fluency matrix or a fluency model like this in place, so that one, everyone in the organization knows what's expected of them in terms of AI knowledge, but also you can then test people, map them on the spectrum, and help them upskill to the appropriate level. If you, again, I just consider this an absolute must watch. If you didn't join that session with Zapier's CHRO, Brendan Samut, it's on the member site. After the session, you get the PowerPoint. In the speaker's notes are all the links. You just got to hear their story of how they got to 94% AI adoption and what they're doing, for example, with this fluency matrix. And the last story here, in terms of the research, is the last piece of news. We reported on it last Friday, a new study from BCG together with Columbia, finding something really interesting, which again should really play in the hands of most of the people in our community, which is that the companies that are doing best in AI adoption are the companies where they are already extremely employee centric. They found that companies that prioritize people are 7 times more likely to reach high AI maturity. And the other thing that they found is that there's a really big gap between the executives on the one hand and then the middle managers and individual contributors on the other hand. There's actually a 33-point split there. So finally, for the practical side, right? It's really great that all of this is something that we should do. The question is always how do we do it, right? And OpenAI on their Dev Day, they actually shared how they are handling this internally. They are sharing how they are implementing AI. And they had a couple of really great case studies, including a go-to-market assistant that's now helping over 400 people at OpenAI, saving one full day per week by checking their calendar and then preparing daily briefings, compiling research, drafting follow-up notes. They have all the details in the link that's attached here. You can see how they built it and how you could quickly build something like this too. In HR, they have a tool that connects data across all of their platforms, including Workday, where now 75% of employees are using it weekly to find information, people, and policies, right? So hopefully this sparks some ideas around how can I now start implementing this and again get to that next level of AI usage. Now, there's been a lot of platform updates as well. There's so many new features coming out. There's so many new platforms coming out all the time. So we just kind of cherry picked a few that are really critical to know. First of all, OpenAI had again a massive demo day where they announced a bunch of new features. Some of you may have seen, some of them you may not have seen yet. The first one is that you can now use apps directly in ChatGPT. So dual side as a user, this is good to know that you can try a bunch of these apps. But if you're looking at the product side of your company, right, what could you build into an app that people can access directly through ChatGPT as more and more people are spending time on the platform? So some of the pilot partners that are now on the platform are Canva, Spotify, Zillow, Booking.com, Uber, and Target are still coming. And you can engage with these apps directly by saying, for example, Spotify, make me a playlist for a certain occasion. And so if you want to work on it on the product side, there's now an apps SDK that is built on MCP. If you're not familiar with the MCP, there's a great session from community member YM Barnett on the member site that guides you through the entire story. And that basically lets you build directly onto ChatGPT. As a user, if you just want to kind of like get familiar with it, there is a great tutorial on the website created by Evelyn from our team, a step-by-step tutorial for how you would use the Canva app directly in ChatGPT. Um, OpenAI also launched Sora 2. If you had seen VO3 before, including in the session that Antti Toivanen did with us a couple of months ago, where we used VO3 for some video generation, this should look pretty familiar, but now OpenAI also has a video tool that can make completely realistic videos. Everything you're seeing on the screen right now is just the result of one prompt. It's absolutely incredible. And then it also comes with the full audio, including narration, dialogue, sound effects, everything. Probably the thing that stood out to me as the strangest part of this whole release is that they now have a social app called Sora where people can create these videos, but also remix them and then share them directly in the feed. So kind of an odd thing. I still have to wrap my head around why we need a TikTok for AI videos. But anyway, OpenAI has released it. And one of the things in there is cameos where celebrities, and I think even yourself, you can allow people to remix yourself. And Sam Altman was, that was really nice of him, one of the first ones to do it, where you can now create any Sora video with his face and voice. And yeah, you can find tons of examples on YouTube. OpenAI also launched, which just very, very exciting, and we spent a bit of time on it last week in our webinar on the Agentic AI course. This SDK for creating agents directly in ChatGPT, which I know Gary will talk about, so I will not spend too much time on it. But just for you to know that again, this is all being launched. This is where AI stands now, right? So get in on the agentic hype because there is really a lot of value to be gained. And then the final portion of the OpenAI news, at least, is that we just released this today. They are now they're in the AI browser arena. They built a new browser called Atlas. It's built on Chromium, which is the same kind of back engine that Chrome and Edge also use. And it's a browser where basically ChatGPT is built in. So you're seeing here on the right-hand side, on any website, you can open the sidebar and you can chat with ChatGPT based on the context of what you're seeing on your screen. There's also the agent mode that you already know from ChatGPT, but the agent can basically then browse directly in your own browser. Previously, it was only on a virtual browser on the OpenAI service. Now it can browse directly in your browsers and take actions. There are a bunch of security implications, so I would really look out for. Basically, I would just say try this air gapped with non confidential data. Be extremely careful. But this, there's a lot of these AI browsers coming out. Chrome has been upgrading. Google has been putting a lot of AI features in Chrome. Obviously, Comet from Perplexity, Dia. There's a lot of AI browsers out there right now, and we kind of start to see this could be the new interface to the internet, right? The AI-driven internet through these browsers. Evelyn, again, from the team, has put together, if you just want to run it as a little experiment, you can download Atlas. It's right now only on Mac. It's coming on Windows and iOS as well, and Android. But if you want to download it on Mac, if you have a Mac, you can do the tutorial that's on the member site where she has mapped out a way to use the OpenAI browser to do a bunch of research on your LinkedIn competitors and build a content plan for yourself, since we all love LinkedIn. So that's on the member side. Of course, it's not just OpenAI and ChatGPT that we have to deal with. We also have other platforms. Gamma is a favorite amongst our community, very quickly making incredible presentations, slideshows. They launched a new version called Gamma 3.0 that has a design agent. And that basically means that you can converse with Gamma as if you're talking to someone creating a slideshow for you. It can research the web, it can pull citations, it can take rough inputs like notes and screenshots and then turn them into slides. They have a couple of new features, including diagrams and smart layouts. The diagrams are basically, if you've been using Napkin AI so far, diagrams are basically their version of it, which is great to just have it integrated into the tool. And then there's also an API. So if you're looking at this from the company perspective, you could start to really automate things like, for example, taking a call note into a custom deck. So again, tons of things to try out there. I know that there's quite a few people, at least in the community, who are on Claude. So Anthropic, the makers of Claude, they launched something called Skills. Skills are kind of like GPTs, but they are a markdown file where you can teach AI a particular thing. And the difference with GPTs, for example, or with projects, is that you can take multiple of them in any workflow. And that means that you can take them with you to all kinds of different conversations and then apply these skills in different conversations. Definitely worth checking out if you're on Claude. And then finally, NotebookLM, another big community favorite. They launched this amazing new feature. I'm so excited about this. Custom reports. So now, rather than hacking the tool to create reports, it's actually a dedicated feature. So you can take any kind of information, as you already know, into NotebookLM. You can set your objective, your audience, the tone of your report. Sometimes NotebookLM will even recommend certain types of formats, like a primer or a blog post based on the material that you upload, and then it just creates it directly. Just another way to get so much more value out of just the few core tools that everyone needs. And also for that one, we have a detailed tutorial, just a little experiment you can run to make this feature your own. And then not every product has to have major upgrades. I love the small incremental changes to the AI tools we already, or to the tools that we already use. In this case, Gmail has a neat little feature. I've been sharing it. People are so excited about this. Wherever you're going back and forth too many times with someone to try and schedule time, Gmail detects it. It will pop up a button that says "Help me schedule," and then you can insert a couple of times that you're available for someone to book it, and it's all directly into the email. I'd also say in Gmail, Gemini is getting so much better at retrieving information, answering questions based on all your email contacts, the auto replies, so the AI drafts that are proposed as replies, they're getting so much better. I'm absolutely stunned by how good it's becoming. Previously, I always had Copilot in Outlook is better. It's going a lot faster in terms of using your personal knowledge graph to auto populate things. But now I really think it's Gemini's game, which is really exciting because I'm on Gmail. So if you're also on Gmail, if you're also on the Google Suite, again, start to build that mental picture that maybe I don't even need these external AI tools. Maybe Gemini is all that I need because it is quite good and it is integrated and you're already paying for it. So then the only part that I would say of kind of like our typical slides that we go through during this session, which is around what does this now mean for me? How do I, as a leader of a team, of an organization, stay ahead? Like how do I position myself, right? And I mentioned before, Josh Bersin, longtime HR work consultant, ex-Deloitte, set up his own practice, right? He calls it becoming a super worker or a super manager, super leader. And basically this idea that you're using AI to dramatically increase your creativity, your productivity, your strategic muscle. And that is really what we would want from AI. And so it's really all about now, even though there are all these new updates and more is becoming clear about what the company of the future looks like, nothing is going to happen. And I say this from experience, a lot of work that we do with clients, nothing is going to happen until the leadership has fully embedded AI. Every leader needs to have 5, 10 assistants or agents running, has to have AI integrated in all their key workflows where AI already can play a role. Otherwise, you cannot storytell, you cannot role model in your organization, and it's just talk. And I'm hearing it from too many people that are saying the company wants us to do X, Y, Z, but we're not seeing it, right? You cannot tell people what to do if you're not doing it yourself. So really figuring out where AI can now implement into your workflows, building that AI team, become AI fluent yourself, and then again you can role model it to others, and tell others that they should really use AI, and that then obviously leads to that 10x organization, right? If we go back all the way to the beginning of this section, where we look at that McKinsey article and the AI, the agentic AI era, we will not get there without transforming ourselves first. And I know it's a pretty tough renegotiation on what you're used to doing and what it used to be like to go to work, right? But the AI genie is out of the bottle. We got to deal with it. So adopt it first, then get everyone involved, right? Do an AI fluency matrix, start upscaling people, start transforming people, start transforming the business, and then you could literally be that breakout company that's adopted AI way more than anyone else. And again, Zapier is now a big case study, but they started 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. The CEO said, Code Red, Wade Fawcett at Code Red, we have to change things now, right? So it starts there. And well, if you've joined before or if you've spoken to me at any point in the last 2 years, right? I also always hammer on these points. Treat AI as a colleague, give it a permanent seat at the table, collaborate with your AI team on all of the kind of workflows where AI already can play a role, use it to increase your capabilities, your quality of work, not just capacity, not just working faster. Take an engineering approach to your work, right? Look at everything that you're currently doing and how could it be better with these new AI capabilities. And then finally, shift from using AI as a tool to letting AI agents execute so that you can just supervise them. You can just sit behind the control panel and let all the AI agents do the work. And on that note, I will hand it over to Gary, who will talk to us about, well, that all sounds good. What is an AI agent? Gary, over to you.
Second time in a day.
Had to happen. You're muted again.
Okay, I'm going to talk through the three phases of AI that I've went through and also the industries went through. And with AI, I've been working with AI for about 20 years. I actually started programming neural networks on my PC and doing my own weights when they first came out and were available. Even in the 80s, there was some neural network chips from Intel that came out that I was playing with. So I've been messing around with computers my whole life. But really and that also is AI, ML, data lakes, the traditional kind of AI that was making decisions about, which movies you're watching on Netflix and these types of things. But it was about a couple of years ago that, when I started to use ChatGPT, that there was a big change for me. That's when I kind of felt like I was talking to a machine that was able to communicate with me and that had some intelligence. And then there's agents, and then there's agentics. So if you've got the next slide, Dan, we'll kind of dig into what these things mean and maybe what they don't mean. We're not quite sure. So when I think about artificial intelligence, it's kind of it's how do we create a machine that is intelligent like humans? So not like animals. Animals are intelligent, but we kind of want this to be an artificial intelligence that is like humans. It can make decisions, it can see, it can recognize speech, and we have that in an LLM, right? Without being connected to any tools, it can see. I've got my Google phone. I can switch it on. I can point it at things. I can talk to it. It can see what I see. I can say, what's the name of this flower? It really does feel like AI. And then we've got agents, and agents are the kind of the next phase in artificial intelligence. So it's an embodiment of an intelligence that is connected to tools and has memory and can think and reason. But it's a closed system, if you like. And then there's what is agentic. So agentic is where it's really describing a system, whereas an agent's describing a tool or a closed system. And the agentic means systems that can operate autonomously to set their own goals and to achieve those goals. We move to the next slide. So what I wanted to cover is like, well, how are each of the big providers of LLMs and agents and agentic workflows, how are they describing agents and agentics? So OpenAI just launched Agent Builder. And prior to this, I was building agents with the Agent SDK and coding and with my team. And that was pretty hard work, right? And I have to have engineers, I have to have coders to do that. But when they brought the Agent Builder, I was actually able to build agentic workflows. Now, from OpenAI's perspective, they see everything through the lens of an LLM. And whenever they're talking about this, they talk about LLMs. So for an agent to them, and this is how they describe it, is a large language model configured with instructions that has access to tools. More specifically, it's a system that's independent and accomplishes tasks, whereas an agentic workflow is a system that can pursue complex goals without anybody directly supervising the agent. So they can be given a task and they can go off and run these big complex systems without us really being in the loop. Whereas an agent is really a back and forth, according to OpenAI. So really they see agents as a concrete tool, while agentic is a quality of a system that it can possess. Next slide. So how that manifests itself in their tools is we're all pretty used to this first image where we are talking to an agent, an LLM, ChatGPT. It has some instructions, tools, and guardrails and hooks. We've added that recently with MCPs, where you can connect to your calendar and to other things. But you really are giving it an input, and then there's an output, and there's a single agent or a single LLM, a single ChatGPT. Now, this new platform with AgentKit, Agent Builder, we now for the first time, it's a little bit technical, but you can still do it with drag and drop. You can add on here an agent, and you can give that agent some instructions. You can tell it which model it's allowed to talk to. You can give it instructions about what type of input it's going to have and what type of output it's going to have. But it's got a single task, and it's then connected within a system. So on this particular diagram here, there's actually two agents, one after another. There's one that qualifies what's coming in, and then there's one that classifies and then makes a decision on which other agents it's going to talk to. In this case, it's a customer support, so it might classify and say, okay, I'm the classification agent, I listen to the conversation, and then I decide, okay, this person is trying to return something to me, so I'm going to go to the returns agent. Or I'm going to send it to the retention agent because I don't want to lose them. So they've said something that makes me want to send it to an agent that's got more capability around trying to keep that person inside my organization and not to cancel their subscription. So it might be more empathetic. And then there might be another agent that just does something else. So for Anthropic, they've really talking about agents in a way that's they're in a closed loop, so that they are connected to the environment and they're in a loop where they can make choices based on the environment and have a feedback loop back into the LLM and then keep making that iteration. For them, agentic, it's the same. It's more of a system. So again, we've got this closed single agent, or an agent can be part of an agentic workflow where there's many agents working together. And it's much easier to understand on the next slide, which is the diagrams. Hopefully we can read these. So this is an idea of a workflow where we're chaining LLMs together, but it's very deterministic. So you've got an input. Let's say this is an email where it has something attached to it. The first LLM would classify that email and say, okay, is this something we're interested in? If it's a pass, let's say it's an invoice and it has an attachment. So we say, yeah, we need to process that. This first one may extract the information from the invoice and then pass it on so that invoice can be processed and maybe sent to an accountancy system, and then it ends. Right? And then the next time there's a trigger with an email, it runs again, and it's deterministic. Now, this augmented LLM is different. It's not actually in a workflow. There's an input and an output, but it's connected to a retrieval system. It's got tools and it's got memory. So what can happen here is multiple types of things can come into the LLM and it can make decisions and from those decisions, it can decide how to process something. But again, it's kind of a human, there's an input and an output and a process in the middle. This autonomous agent at the end, you can see this is where the loop is introduced. Where there's a human talking to the LLM is connected to its environment. It can take an action, and then there's a feedback. And then depending on what happens to that feedback, the agent can decide whether it's finished its task, or whether it needs to reiterate, or whether it needs to talk to a human and ask for advice, or to give them actually the output, and then it can stop. By the way, these links, if Dan shares the slide, will take you to some very good articles for each one of these to describe agents and agentics within the main vendors. Now, this is still coding though. So in Anthropic, they haven't released a drag and drop system. You have to actually code, which is why even though I can code, I don't want to code. So I'm very much been running all of my automations, building agents and agentic workflows in N8N. And more recently, I've been also using the agent builder from OpenAI. The great thing about the agent builder is once you've finished building something with the agent builder from OpenAI, you can actually output all of the code. And that code can be run on your system, on a server with your team. But you can build an agent system and hand it off to a developer with all of the code completed, and then they can polish it and do the developer stuff that they need to do. But with N8N, I'm able to build agents with a drag and drop interface. And from N8N's perspective, they're not talking about coding, they're not talking about agents or agentics in the same way. What they're saying is, this is a place, and an agent is a system that receives data, makes decisions, and acts within its environment to achieve a specific goal. And what this is that you drop this onto a canvas and you can connect tools and workflows within an agentic mix as well. So with an agentic workflow inside N8N, you can connect multiple agents together along with tools and normal workflows, and you can create an agentic system. Next slide's good. So you can see on the left-hand side here, I'm using my cursor, but I don't know how to say that, but there's a single agent system, and this is a Telegram agent, which I use all the time. I can basically speak using Telegram on my phone or on my computer. It feeds in here, and whatever, if I can type as well. If it's text, it'll go this way. If it's voice, it goes this way. But the agent then has access to my calendar, my email. It's got search tools, and it can make decisions and do things on my behalf. I actually use it quite a lot to do translations because I'm in Vietnam, and I can do a search for restaurants. And if I do that, it'll translate it automatically, and it'll reply back to me and tell me where the nearest restaurants are and certain things. I can do bookings and other things just with a simple single agent. And I can send emails and request things. Now, a single agent like this, you can see this agent here is connected to a memory. The brain, this is the LLM, and also a thinking tool, which is like a notepad, and then other discrete tools. On this left-hand side, you can see there's multiple agents connected together. So this first agent, in the way I've used this, is I create something, either a piece of content, and I pass it through the system, and the first one will grade it, a critic, and then it'll pass it on to, I can't say the name of the second one. So there's a critic, a grader, and then there's a rubric, and it'll pass it around this loop, changing the content until it gets to a point where the scoring system says this is good enough. So one of the things it might do is check all of the references, check the tone of voice, whether it's in the same the way that I like to write, and it'll grade it until the content is correct, and then it'll pass it off as being okay, and it'll stop and give me the content. Zapier is also very similar to N8N, but it doesn't allow you very fine-grained control over coding. So it's very good if you don't want to do any coding. So this is like a no-code platform at all. But it also, the way they see things is the same as, an LLM company sees it as LLMs. This is workflows where you can connect multiple systems together, AI agents, and you can carry out complex multi-stage tasks by sending in a trigger, processing things, passing it through an LLM or an agent, and then have those agents connected together in a workflow. So again, for Zapier, this is a task handler that proactively monitors for triggers and takes actions automatically. And if anybody's used Zapier, you'll know exactly what that is. It's a workflow, and in those workflows, there's agents. But there's very little coding capability within it. like this. This is a pretty good slide to finish on. The CEO of Zapier just recently released this, and it kind of encapsulates everything where you can see a workflow with no LLM, no AI in it. This is just a prescriptive step-by-step process and different nodes within a system that does a specific task. So a new lead comes in, we send an SMS, and we add it to the CRM. Now, I'll say that when it comes to workflows and agents, agents and LLMs are probabilistic, so they can't do anything 100% right. So if you're doing something like accounting, where you want to get everything accurate, a deterministic workflow like this is better. But once you add some kind of intelligence and creativity, like writing a message, AI is much better at that. You can get it to write in a certain tone based on the type of lead and the type of process that you want, and then send the SMS and add it to the CRM. This is like the Anthropic workflow, where you have a new lead come in and there's one LLM agent or AI does some research. The second one analyzes knowledge base, then it adds it to the CRM, and then a third will write a message. So these are the creative pieces of this workflow, whereas add to CRM, a Slack notification, and send that SMS, those are all nodes that produce a task that's deterministic. And then finally, the agent it isn't following a workflow that's prescribed. It's kind of, it has some instructions, it has some knowledge, and it has access to tools. It has an input and an output, and it will make decisions on the fly depending on the input, what type of output will be required. So that's a lot of different vendors talking about agentics and AI in a different way. And every time you go in and try and look at these things, if you get into building them, it's slightly different for everybody. But there's two main things that do stick. One is an agent is a self-contained, like you said, agent that has agency, but an agentic workflow is a system of many agents working together with other tools. But the way I like to think about it is the way Andrew Ng says it. He really wasn't happy with people arguing about whether it's an agent. Is it an agent? Is it agentic? Is it a workflow? He said, well, all you really need to think about is it's on a scale. And at one side you have less agentic, so it might be a workflow with an LLM. And then as you get more complex, it becomes more agentic. And there's degrees along this scale that these agents and agentic workflows work on. So we can get away from the argument of like, is this an agent? Is it an agentic workflow? There's kind of you can have one side to the other. I really am feeling tired now, Dan. What's next?
It is pretty late at night.
Yeah.
Good. This is super helpful. I've heard this now for the third time, this presentation, and it's finally starting to sink in a little bit what it means. I think, again, there is obviously a technical side to this, but for all of us, this is so important to understand because it gives you a picture again of what an organization will. If I see those kind of charts, I'm kind of thinking with my HR brain in org charts, right? Just to think about again the humans in an organization that will be handling all of these agents and agentic workflows, right? And how do you lead a company where so much of the work is invisible and is being done outside of what you directly control in terms of the people? So I think it's really a big mindset shift, and that's why I'm not surprised that we don't really see that huge of an impact of AI yet. I really think that like the biggest things are still to come. So again, Gary has a great program specifically on Agentic, which that first cohort is sold out, but hopefully we can run it again and get some more people in. We have potentially few spots for the November 14 bootcamp where we really take you from understanding AI, looking at where it would impact your workflows, and then figuring out how to implement 5 assistance agents automations to make sure that again you really live AI and you can speak credibly and role model and story tell to your team. You'll get a bit more information about that in the post webinar email. With that said, thanks so much, Gary, for joining us so late at night. Sorry that we had to keep you up.
Okay, I was petered out at the end there, but I hope it was okay.
It was very good. It was very good. And thanks everyone for joining. If you're in the membership, then very much looking forward to seeing you very soon for the session with Helen Cobb-Lee, where we can learn about how to use Claude Code, which should be another very fascinating conversation. So thanks
Yeah.
everyone, and see you again soon.